Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another version of By the Time We Get to Phoenix, Our View from the Back Seat. And this is episode number 3. And I am joined today by another brother who never takes a back seat to anybody, and that is my brother Rick. How you doing today, Rick?
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad to have you here. And the first episode, we had the baby brother, Kyle. And Kyle, during this time, 1973, 1974 era, he was the baby. He's turned into an incredible motivational speaker and has done some great things. Last episode, if you listen, we had my brother Jeff. And Jeff was and still is considered the brain of the outfit, I guess, right, Rick?
Yeah, he is very smart. Well, we're all pretty smart in our own ways.
Well, in our own ways, but Jeff was known for that, a great thinker. And as you listen to the podcast, you're probably thinking a lot of things, but he is the thinking part of the podcast. We're hoping to have the second part of the Twin Terrors, Randy coming on. Randy is easy-go-lucky, and he is both easy and lucky. But we want to have him on, and but right now we've got the charismatic brother on, the one that was always charismatic and lovable. And Mom just said, "This is my teeny boy, and you stay away from teeny weeny." So we're going to talk with that brother. He still is the charismatic one. And so I was the troublemaker, by the way. That was my moniker, and probably still is. But we're talking about things 50, 60 years ago.
Right.
So we're going to get a kick started on our journey that we had. And I'm not sure, Rick, why we were so fascinated with Phoenix, in particular Mom and Dad. It was their paradise that they were always reaching for. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Why the fascination? I know a lot of it had to do with the way my dad's brother, Dallas, glamorized Phoenix. And it was a city that was in an area that was hot and sunny and bright, and on the move, on the grow. And we were living in a small town in Upper Sandusky, Ohio, northern Ohio, with the gray skies and the wind blowing. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think, Upper at that time had maybe 5,000 people, maybe. And then, Phoenix at that, probably in the early 70s, had at least 500,000 people, probably in the metro over 1 million at that time even. And, for small town folk like us, Phoenix would have been, someplace glamorous and everything. And what's shocking to me when I think about that when we went there, I mean, we rode our bikes and walked, all around that city, as kids. I was, 10, 11, 12 years old, and you were a little bit older, but still. We went trick-or-treating in Phoenix, and I don't think Mom and Dad went with us, but my goodness, some of the things we did now, I don't think you'd be safe doing some of those things.
Well, we had free reign. If you remember, Mom and Dad would even leave us alone to our own devices many, many times. And, of course, they usually paid a price for it because we would just tear up the house. I want to talk about one episode because when we moved down there to stay, Mom and Dad had just sold their house on South 8th Street in Upper Sandusky. The house is still there. I would love to go in that house, by the way. And I remember them saying that they got like a $20,000 profit from the house, and but they ended up going to Phoenix, and we got a small little trailer. It wasn't really that big. Do you remember that trailer park?
Oh, I absolutely do. Yeah,
they had a swimming pool.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I don't want to go into the swimming pool incident too much. I almost drowned Jeff in that pool one time, but I don't want to bring that up right now. I'm not even sure I want to talk about it with Jeff. I'm sure he remembers it vividly.
Well, I don't know if you remember when I fell at that swimming pool and got
I do.
Open my chin. up.
Yeah.
And, mom and dad wouldn't let us ever go to the doctors, and that
No,
probably should have had stitches.
no doubt
But
about it.
I still have that mark on my chin today. It's
Are you
still there.
kidding me? Right.
Yeah, it's still there.
And Jeff still got his marks from me almost drowning him.
These are
Uh,
emotional.
you and Randy were in the pool at that time. Of course,
We
Kyle was
were.
only two.
Right.
I ended up saving him after I almost killed him. Jeff, if you're listening, I want to ask for your forgiveness on that. I'm going to have
Well,
to.
we'd be shocked today at how small that pool was. I mean, to
Yeah,
us it seemed like a fairly large pool, but I'm sure it was just a ordinary sized swimming pool at a typical trailer park or whatever.
right. But it seemed like everybody had a pool, even trailer parks. But
Yeah.
it was 10 feet at the deep end, though. I will say that. And Jeff would kick off the deep end, and it would take him into the shallow end. And he was, oh, look, I can swim. And I said, well, we'll see about that. And that was just my nature at that time. And I promised myself I wouldn't bring some of this up because I love my brothers, and I want them to like me a little bit. But I was definitely a troublemaker. I don't know what I was filled with. I don't even want to think about it. Thank God that I've changed my ways. But I remember.
What we don't talk about is the one like brawl that happened there where you protected us really because you were so much bigger than people that messed with us.
I don't remember that. You have to refresh my. We had a brawl where I protected you guys. I don't remember.
Yeah, that we got into some kind of fight with other people, other kids at the pool.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, with other kids at the pool. It was always
Yeah.
around the pool, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you protected us. Nobody messed with it. I think you punched some kid right in the face.
Yeah, I did. And then we kind of took off. But
Right.
I was 15. You were 11. Jeff was 13. And but it's funny because then I was going to bring up the fight that we had as a group in the trailer. Mom and Dad were not home.
Right.
And in the living room, which was not that big, I was working on Jeff pretty well, pounding him down. And you and Randy came out and saw that. And I know you
jumped on
remember
your back.
this. You came and jumped on my back and took your fist at 11-year-old. You're probably 80 pounds, if that. And you hit me right in the square of my back.
And it was like a movie in slow motion. You stopped. You turned around.
I said, what was that? I did feel it, though, because it was on my spine, strategically placed. And then you and Randy yelled out because I came at you. And you ran into the bathroom. Do you remember that?
Oh, absolutely. We locked the door. You started to take the hinges off.
So Jeff's laying on the ground, on the floor in the living room, and I'm pounding on that door. I didn't care if I broke it down. So if anyone has seen the scene from
The Shining.
The Shining, here's Johnny. I didn't have an axe. But I'm pounding on that door, and you and Randy are in there screaming, yelling,
Yeah.
because you're 11 years old and you're 4
I think we
foot
even
tall,
opened a little bathroom window.
trying to escape out.
Yeah.
And I'm in there at 15, only 4 years older, but I was a foot taller than you guys. And so that was one thing I remember. Those days have changed.
Right.
But you guys don't really defend Jeff anymore. Maybe you should more often. He could have used you at that Cavaliers game where he was being picked on by that one guy, and he turned around and said, "Don't ruin my fun." But that's another story.
Classic. Yeah.
But we had a lot of moments of memory in and around that trailer. And another one was Dad would buy food, and there was a cupboard there, and he'd lock the cupboard. I don't know if you recall that or not.
They padlocked it, yeah.
Padlocked it, and Dad thought he was being very, very clever. He would lock it before they went to bed. And I remember getting up and finding a small screwdriver, or I probably used a knife. But the way Dad hooked it up, you'd had access to the screws, and I would I would unscrew it and take out a loaf of bread, and of course it had to be non-perishables. I would find donuts in there.
Yeah.
We didn't drink coffee at that time, so I would find milk, and milk was really hard to come by. But then I would lock it back up, and Mom would get up. I can't do her voice, but it's like, well, what, we having all the food we had in here. We had a lot more than this. Come on, I had a loaf of bread.
Yeah, the rest of us were almost starving.
Well, the
But
funny thing,
people forget that we're boys. I mean, we're all
right? We're just
we're
kids.
we're just kids, and boys eat a lot, especially at that age. We were, me and Randy were preteen. Jeff was 13. You were 15. I mean, we eat a box of cereal like it was nothing. I mean, we'd go through at least a box of cereal a day for breakfast.
Yeah, luckily it was only like 50 cents a box back in the 1970s.
Yeah.
But the other thing, which I don't know how I got away with this, but Mom and Dad gave me my own room. I had my own
Right.
bedroom. You guys were stuffed like rats in a very small room. I think you were on bunk beds, if I remember.
Yeah,
correctly.
we were.
You would
Yeah.
remember that more than I would.
Yep.
But I had a stereo in there. I had a closet and my own food. Now, it's amazing thinking about that. But I had to fight for what I wanted, I guess. I thought that, and I've kind of continued that to my adult life. Anything I want, I have to really fight for. But what you guys tolerated was unbelievable. Another thing I want to talk about is in that trailer park area, Dallas would come over and we'd play football and we'd run around. Do you remember those days?
I do. In the sand, and poor Dallas took a beating. I mean, from us, because we were playing tackle with him
Right.
in the sand.
I remember though, even we would play on the parking lot cinder, and there would be little tiny stones. And a couple times, I swear it was you or Randy. I'm sure I got blamed for it, but we knocked Dallas down a couple times. He would bounce on that cinder parking lot and have bruises on him, but he kind of took it as an honor because he was with us, and he took us in really because he had one son, Dallas Jr. He was nicknamed Bean, and but he didn't really do anything athletically, so he had us.
Yeah.
He really enjoyed that. It's almost like he just had to have that.
Yeah, he was a good uncle. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
and he was always good natured. I mean, he was
always.
Yeah.
Even when we knocked him down and beat him up, he would go home and Linda would say, "What happened to you?" His wife Linda. Well, I got knocked down again by the boys, haha, and just laughed about it. But he was actually quite athletic for as big as he was. He was like 6'2", 250.
Yeah.
So
I don't remember us bouncing Dad around. I mean, I remember when Dad got older, we, pound on him a little bit. But during those days, I don't remember ever knocking Dad down to the ground.
No way, because Dallas was probably 7, 8, maybe 10 years younger than Dad. So Dad in 1974 would have been, what, 40?
42, yeah.
42. So Dallas was 32. He was in his prime.
Yeah.
But they were very close. And they got along very well together.
Have you talked about some of the trips to Phoenix? I know I heard the one with Kyle where,
yes, we did. I'd love to hear your perspective on the trips going or coming home. We don't seem to remember too much driving back home because we were all so sad that we were leaving. Going back to it, but the trips getting there, we were just full of excitement. Any perspective you have on the trips, I would love to hear, and so would our audience.
I do remember the one time we flew back. I can't remember why we flew back.
That was in 1973. I remember that because the Reds were playing the Mets for the chance to go to the World Series. So Dad realized, I guess, he made a mistake, and he drove back. I believe, or flew back. He got his job back at Marion Power Shovel, and then he had us and Mom fly back. And I think even Marion Power Shovel paid for the trip. I think they did. And it was.
I know it was our first time flying. I know it was my first time flying.
Oh, it was exciting. All of our first time. It was October of 1973, so it would have literally been almost to the day 50 years ago that we flew back. And Dad picked us up at the airport, so he had a car, so he may have driven his car back by himself. Can you imagine that type of a drive back from Phoenix? And
because it was about a 26-hour drive or something like that.
Oh, at least maybe it takes 3 days to go from Ohio to Phoenix, so to drive it by yourself would take incredible mind control. But I remember that plane because it was our first time. creaking, and every time there was a movement, we were kind of scared, and we were even in
Right.
the near the front of the plane. So I don't know if we had first class tickets that Marion Power Shovel paid for, but I remember that very well. You know,
I
Kyle was
remember
just a baby.
we had breakfast on it. I remember that because I remember having sausage with eggs and pancakes. It was really, I remember that part of it.
Amazingly, we were treated like almost like VIPs, first
Yeah.
class, paid for by Marion Power Shovel. So they obviously thought a lot of Dad. Why he thought he had to leave that job, we'll never know. I would love to have a discussion with all the brothers, why they made some of the decisions they made. But he also missed his family, I think. I think he missed his
Yeah.
mom and dad and just being away. And it just wasn't enough just having Dallas there. The other thing that I've talked off record about with other brothers is why mom and dad couldn't make it out there. I don't know if you have any perspective on that as an older guy now. Mom got a job at Phoenix General. So did dad
Right.
as a security guard. That hospital's no longer around. They seem to have it made, but for some reason they just struggled with that, and I'm not sure why it didn't work out.
Yeah. I would guess the family piece because I think we all are just so it's ingrained in all of us. Being close to family. Even though we kind of go our own separate ways, we always kind of end up back in Ohio, and it's one of the reasons when I went to college in Minnesota, one of the reasons I came back to Ohio is because I missed golfing with you guys and seeing you guys,
Yeah.
and so I think that had something to do with it. But with being a kid, being 11, 12, 13, I never thought about money, even though
No.
we
still
didn't have a lot of money.
You still
But
don't.
you're
think
right.
about
I really don't ever think about that kind of stuff. But yeah, it'd be interesting to have mom and dad tell us why we moved so much. What was it? You or Jeff said like 27 schools in 12 years of
Well, I went to
13 years.
I went to 18 in 12 years. I would just make the team of something, and we'd move. And if you notice, I said we moved back the first time in October. So school had started. We just got established. And
Right.
here we are moving back, a new school again. So we were always the new kids on the block.
Right.
And
that's tough.
It's tough.
To get, because sports, especially at that time, it still is, but especially in the 70s, was so you had to have kind of a name already established. Rarely were you going to just show up in October, November, and people were going to, especially you go on. It'd be one thing if you moved to a neighboring city, but for us, it was going from Ohio to Arizona.
Yeah, what an extreme. And, Patty sometimes said, why weren't you more productive in sport? Well, I would have been. I think all of us were. But every time we would get ready to make a team or try out, we would move. So we lost out on a lot.
You made the freshman basketball team at Marion Harding.
Worked my tail off all summer. And then we moved. Again, that was October that we moved.
Right.
That was the next year. So literally we stayed back, came back October 73. A year later, we moved back to Phoenix. And I went to Phoenix again. We were in Phoenix again in 74. So it's like, Dad didn't really consider what we thought, I think it made us very, very mentally strong. I don't know. You seem to be mentally strong, Jeff, Kyle, Randy. I'm a little bit more affected because I took the brunt of things as the older brother, the oldest. So there was a lot of responsibility on me. I've gotten stronger mentally now.
Right.
But, so that's just something psychiatrists and psychologists would have a field day, I think, with our family. The only thing I want to make sure that I'm clear on is Mom and Dad were really tremendous people, and I want to kind of go that route a little bit.
Right.
Dad never ever raised his voice to me, and boy, I deserve to be, but he never did. He never hit me. Mom was the enforcer, and she
was the enforcer. Yeah.
She did, put the hammer down many, many times, but they were wonderful people, high morals. I want to get your take on that. I know Mom was hard on you also, like she was on me. Um,
Right.
uh,
I
but
think she just had very high expectations for us, and she didn't want us to waste that on other things. I think Uncle Bob at her funeral put it really well when he said, you know, she had, five boys and a husband. She was outnumbered 6-1, but she was never, how did he put it? Do you remember how he put that?
yeah, never felt outnumbered. I remember that. I don't remember who said it. I actually thought Kyle came up with that one. But I remember one time being very mad at her, and I said, you're just like Lombardi. And I thought I was giving her an insult. And of course, I'm talking about Vince Lombardi, the historic Green Bay Packer disciplinarian. And she took that as a compliment, and she loved it when said, "Oh, my sons think I'm Lombardi." And of course, she had a wonderful laugh. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but they had that one issue where they just felt like they're searching for something, and they never really found it. But they were such good people. I mean, they were great in their community. Dad was an umpire. He did everything he could for us. He did it all
Right.
free of charge. He never missed work. They made sure we had food on the table. I always remember the Christmases we had where they made sure that we had those traditions, which we still continue. Mom always dressed you and Randy exactly alike, which I thought was funny. Till you guys finally said, enough of that. I think you were 18. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, we were probably fifth or sixth grade before we stopped dressing the same. Yeah, that's what gets lost on some of these funny stories is that, mom and dad's all their good traits. And definitely dad taught us, and mom too taught us this great work ethic. I very rarely have missed work in my career.
Right.
And always, and even you, always striving to be the top of your game or whatever. And
Your profession, yeah.
yeah,
Well,
top of the profession. Yeah.
well, you were known for that. When you retired at age 62, you were well
62.
loved.
I got retired at 59, buddy.
59.
I'm only 61 now.
Oh, okay, that's right.
You're thinking of Jeff.
I'm looking at your profile picture. I'm sorry. No, I'm kidding. So when you retired, you very well respected, never missed work, and you really rose quite quickly. Jeff's retiring next year. I'm going to keep going till I'm 72 probably, and I don't know about Randall when he'll be retiring. But
Well, by the way, Randy just texted me. He's trying to get on, but I sent him the link, but it's not working for him. So it's too bad because Randy would be a good addition to.
Yeah, we'll have to get
this.
another one when he comes on. So stay tuned, folks. We will get him on with our next episode. I would love to hear his take on it. But one thing I remember, I want to stay on Mom and Dad, their great qualities, is Mom looked at every grade card and signed it. When I left home years later, she had kept every grade card, first grade through 12, and she signed every single card. Perfect, immaculate handwriting. Dad never one time signed it.
No.
We had back in the day, they had to sign the grade cards and turn them back in or whatever that they were seen. And Mom never missed. She signed every single one. I still have those grade cards from 1 through 12.
Well, remember what she used to say that if I ever hear of you misbehaving or whatever at school, you're going to get it when you get home.
Yeah, I remember that so well.
We didn't really.
No, we never really did. We had trouble among ourselves.
Right.
We never had trouble out in society. We were the models of society, and that continues. That came into play with you on your work accomplishments and everything, which are quite extensive. And even Jeff just won an award for his job, a national award.
I saw that. Yeah.
So that work ethic was there. But getting back to Phoenix now, I remember Dallas always had a classic car. Do you remember that? All those great cars he had, how particular he was with those beautiful cars from the 70s?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And he would ride us in those cars, and he always, Dallas never really had a full-time job, so I don't know if he had disability or whatever, but I remember getting into those beautiful cars with the hood down and just cruising Phoenix. I remember one time I was in the car with Dad in Dallas, and they were driving through Phoenix from one end to the other, and we were just cruising, just taking a tour of Phoenix, 1974, 1973, and Dallas made a light. Then he made another light. Then he made another light, and he ended up making like 10 in a row. He would just barely make it, and the light would turn to yellow. So he's going down, and they were getting excited. I'll never forget this. It's so funny what you remember. Dad's getting excited as Dallas goes through, and the next thing you know, they've made like 15 straight lights, and that's just how it was planned. Then a car pulled in front of them, and the very last light on the strip, they got slowed down, and they missed that light. And I remember how upset Dallas was. He was competitive. So was Dad. Oh, come on, Dallas. Oh, just missed one. And he kind of gave that mentality to us, and we were very competitive.
Yeah.
In all the things
Absolutely.
we did.
And I think it's why I think it also attributes to why we treat each other the way we do is how Dallas and Dad got along, and Dallas with all his brothers, you know. They had nicknames for each other, and
we did too.
And we did too, and we still do, you know.
We won't mention the nicknames today. I'm not going to do that. I'm the one that kind of came up with them, but not going to talk about the nicknames. We need to have a podcast where we talk about how we were named and some of the Smith and Butterman history.
Yeah.
Mom loved to give us nicknames. I'm not going to go into nickname, but Mom gave me the nickname BR, which I thought was very strange because, you know, B and R is the first two letters of my name, and she thought that would be a good nickname. Having the last name Butterman, Mom would tell me that she was just teased mercilessly.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible. Well, we're running out of time a little bit, so I want to keep talking about our time in Phoenix. And by the way, the title of this podcast is By the Time We Get to Phoenix, Our View from the Back Seat. You were in the back seat a lot. I never remember you complaining or having any issues being in that back seat in between me and Jeff. You and Randy seem to get along well. Do you have any memories of the drives there or back?
You know, the only thing I remember is the time the muffler fell off.
And you
I remember that. And I had to crawl under there and wire it back up with a clothes hanger.
Well, you were the smallest at that time. You know, we couldn't have Kyle do it, so you were very small back then before you had your growth spurt. I remember that. And, you know, it was clanging along for the longest time. We're really lucky that we didn't have more car trouble.
Yeah, we were lucky.
You probably don't remember when we were driving along and Dad parked because he was exhausted, and he parked not in a roadside rest or a motel. He would park one time on the side of a cliff, basically, and it rolled back. You might have been too young to remember that.
Wow. No, I don't remember that. But I remember the time that you went off with the people in the truck.
Yeah, we talked about that the last podcast.
I do remember that one.
Oh my goodness! You know, you've seen movies with mobsters where, you know, let's take that final ride, and you end up at the bottom of the ocean somewhere in concrete. I didn't know what to make of that. I just said, well, they finally got rid of me. They got rid of the troublemaker.
That's fine.
But we're running out of time here. We've got about 6 minutes left, but. I do remember also, I want to get your take on, back in 1977, 78, I was about 20 years old, had just gotten married, had this really cute little house, and I came home one day, and there you and Randy were, with a note from Mom saying that they were staying with me and my brand new wife. Do you remember that at all?
I remember staying with you when we were in high school. I remember mostly me. I think Randy ended up going with Mom and Dad after a little while.
See, it's kind of murky because so many things happened, but you stayed with me. But at the beginning, it was you and Randy.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe he had moved into Bucyrus or stayed with somebody in Bucyrus. But the shock I had coming home, and, you know, I didn't make any money. And Mom and Dad saying, you know, we're going to Phoenix again, and the boys are going to stay with you to finish out their school.
Right.
Which was unbelievable.
Yeah,
So
that was an interesting time. You couldn't do that today, you know.
no,
Uh, I also remember that when we started the school year, we put our address and all this, and then the school, my senior year, found out that mom and dad had an address in Bucyrus, and that I didn't really have a home. that and but they said it was so late in the school year they weren't going to do anything
oh,
about
that
it, I guess.
that was kind of lucky there. Who knows what could
Yeah,
have happened about that?
yeah.
But in our final moments, I want to get your take on it. It's just that although all these things were happening, it was the last time we were really together during those magic years of 73, 74, 75. I graduated from high school in 76 and then moved
Right.
out. We were together as a family under one roof, and some of the moments and memories we had. I don't want to give the impression that our parents were bad people. They absolutely were not. It just comes down to sometimes the decision making and looking for things. You know, the phoenix is the word of the podcast, and the mythical phoenix is that bird, that animal that rises from the
From the
ashes,
ashes.
and you're smarter, you've learned, and you're a better person, which we ended up. That kind of rings true for us because that's what happened to us. We all five ended up with major degrees. You retired really with honors. We all have fairly decent careers and jobs and have given back to our society. So I'd like to get your final take on that and give you the last word before
Sure.
we conclude our podcast today.
Well, I think none of us use it as an excuse. You know, I think it did make us stronger. I think it was part of the journey. I mean, Phoenix was definitely part of the journey. I don't harbor any ill feelings towards you or anybody or mom and dad for moving us around. You know, we all are always looking for our best lives, and that's what mom and dad did. I mean, I'm glad we experienced Phoenix because, I mean, it's Phoenix, Arizona, and it's far away, and it still has a mythical place. I took a golfing trip there, you know, a few years ago, 10 years ago, I guess, and it was great to go back to Phoenix. It's a beautiful city, and you know, I hope to get back there again because it was a part of our lives for a few years, and it certainly was a sort of a treasure island for dad and mom at one point, and you know, it was a great part of my journey, and I have interesting memories of Phoenix. None of them really bad. I mean, there was a lot of good times there too, and you know, the big fight in the trailer where you scared Randy and I half to death. We, you know, nothing bad came out of it. We survived it. It was just boys being boys most of the time.
That's
why I tell Mary and everybody, it's just boys being boys.
Very well said, and it gave us beautiful memories. And if you can laugh thinking back to a different time, then it was meant to be, and it was a good time. You know, things are not the same now. We are close as a family. It's not quite the same with the way it was. And, you know, sometimes the reason our family doesn't feel the same anymore is because, you know, we buried the ones who kept our family together. So we really want to honor mom and dad. They did the best they could for what they had. Money was not the key to our existence. We found moments and memories, but it wasn't based on money.
Exactly. And still not.
And still not. You don't want, if you're living your life for money and not for family, something's missing. Well, I want to thank you, Rick, very much for being a part of this podcast. I'm sorry Randy couldn't quite get in. Please tell him we want him in. I'd like to have another one with the Twin Terrors. So we're going to conclude our episode today, folks. I've been reminiscing down this journey with one of the Twin Terrors, the charismatic one, Ricky Wayne Smith. That's actually his name on his birth certificate is Ricky, but it's Rick. He's a great guy. He was gracious enough to come on. So you've been listening to By the Time We Get to Phoenix, Our View from the Back Seat. And again, to a man who doesn't take a back seat to anybody, I want to thank my brother Rick, and we'll see you again down the road.
Thank you, Brian.